Good morning, friends. This is your old girl, Melanie Rose, here to share your daily aspects. Today is Sunday, January 2, 2022. The sun is in Capricorn, as are Venus and Pluto. Pluto spends more than 20 years in each sign, and it is significant to note that this year, 2022, is Pluto's last full year in Capricorn. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, and while this has been the case, we have all been through a good deal of transformation on the personal level and in the world and in culture. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and it represents the networks and structures we rely on for support, as well as our responsibility to maintain them. But Pluto is the planet that represents the extremes, and the extremes always bring us through deep, radical change. Since 2008, we have seen a lot of radical change in the big and small structures we look to and lean on for support. In the planet and in world affairs, in our nations, regions, counties, and municipalities, on the level of our own public and personal lives, at work, in the civic and social spheres, and even at home. Look around you and think back to 2008. From where I'm sitting, it looks like everything has changed. And as our networks and structures have been transformed, many breaking down entirely to make way for something new, so have our responsibilities and ambitions transformed, and our sense of how and why we take on those responsibilities and ambitions has transformed. The factors to consider when we're taking on new things in 2022 are completely different from the ones we would have given thought to in 2008. Naturally, things feel a little chaotic. We grow impatient with our metamorphosis. All this time spent in transformation, and we are still not through it. This is the final year, friends. Like the growth that a caterpillar has undertaken to become a moth, we feel more and more complete, finished, and ready to be on the other side. But this is not just a time of waiting impatiently for the doors to swing wide open on the new world. This is the time when we gather our strength. We will need strength when the time comes to break open this chrysalis. It will take strength to spread those wings for the first time. The new year's new moon is also in Capricorn. With the new moon, we set intentions. The strong Capricorn influence in our lives asks us to ask ourselves, what responsibilities am I willing and ready to call into my life? What ambitions spark my drive and put in effort? What ambitions spark my drive to put in effort and build my strengths toward achieving them? So setting intentions is really the least of it. I would say meditate on ambition. Okay, let's take a look at the legend and go over the symbols on the page today, and then we'll get into some interpretation. Forever and always, at the top of our list is the sun, and the sun represents our outer life. This is who we are when we step out the front door. It is the person that people get to know when they first meet us, and it's also how we come to engage in our civic, social, and work spheres. After the sun comes the moon, and the moon represents our inner life. This is our relationship with ourselves, those things that we think, feel, intuit, and also how we come to engage in our domestic life. Pluto on the page. Pluto is about transformation. It's about the extremes, so the death and rebirth, the high highs and the low lows of our experiences, our emotions, our intuitions. And that's always, all that stuff is always putting us through the work of the deeper transformations, which happen slowly. Venus is about love and money, or how do we relate to those people and things that we value the most, like love and can't get enough of. Saturn is about the structures that we rely on. Uranus relates to doing things differently, so it asks us to make changes. Neptune represents our relationship to humanity. Mercury is the intellect, and that's especially your day-to-day thoughts, plans, and communications, the walking around that you do. And Chiron represents your healing. As for aspect energies that are on the page today, we have a few. We have a trine here. Trine is very positive. It represents harmonious vibrations between the effects of these two planets. And it would be interesting to see during the time of this trine whether you notice any synchronicities in your life, because synchronicity is a key word for trine operations. Sextile is also a very positive energy. It indicates cooperative energy between the planets involved, and cooperation makes things happen. So we can generate good things out of a sextile. Conjunct tends to amplify the effects of both planets involved. And that can be great, or it can be challenging depending on the effects and how they're amplified. And square is a challenging aspect. It just indicates that there's a possibility for us to run into some challenges as we go through our day. Signs of note on the page today: Capricorn and Aries. So let's get into it. I have divided the page into two columns, one for each of our luminaries. The moon sheds light on our inner lives. It sets the tone for our emotional experiences and our home space relationships. The moon moves quickly, creating many short aspects that bring with them energies that may affect our feelings and intuitions. The sun sheds light on our outer lives, setting the tone for our experiences at work and in the social and civic spheres. I address the rest of the planets and aspects on this side because they take longer and they have more to do with our actions out in the world. And we begin with the moon today at Central Standard Time, 10:19 a.m. The moon makes a trine with Uranus. We have positive feelings about the changes that are coming about in our personal lives. Emotionally, and in the home space, we see a lot of synchronicity. Changes develop quickly and we move through them with ease. This is a 2-hour aspect. Positive feelings about changes. Remember, this is heart and home. And I'm going to start checking for the synchronicity of this timing. And then the next morning, actually Monday morning at 1:52 a.m., in the middle of the night, the moon makes a sextile with Neptune. So at this time, we're able to feel the energies of those people around us. We're very creative at a time like this. Our intuition may guide us to create some sort of heart-centered beauty in our homes and with our loved ones. And this is a 2-hour aspect. I was going to say heart-centered beauty, connection, creativity. So it's a great time if you want to be up in the middle of the night to, engage in some artistry that you like to do, whether it is playing an instrument or, painting or drawing or making collage. If you're up at 2 in the morning and you feel like doing something creative, this is a good time to do it. You might generate something really positive in terms of, understanding for yourself. So today's lunar signature is one of ease and creativity as we think about our future plans. On the sun side of the page, in the ongoing column, of course, we have Venus retrograde through the end of the month. And this may have us giving even our warmest alliances an unintentional or an intentional cold shoulder. We're conservative in our approach to sharing our love and our labor, not just because this is the time for commitments at work and home to be under review, but because this is also the time to attend ourselves with loving care. Venus retrograde gives us the space to make certain our relationships are balanced. Investment for value. If we've been taking the short end of the deal, this is painfully obvious by now. It's time to stand up and ask for better terms. And speaking of standing up and asking for better terms, Saturn square Uranus will be in effect through the 6th. So this one has been challenging with some shifts in our status quo, some foundational movement. Whether or not we wanted to begin doing something differently, we may have been put in that position anyway. And bucking the system, doing things differently, it's uncomfortable. It makes us feel uncertain. But again, this is the time to advocate for ourselves and not to make ultimatums. And then the general advice for both of these is not to make any firm or hard endings to situations you've come to rely on until at least the 30th of January. Like only quit your job if you're in a really bad space, only leave your lover if you're in an abusive situation. If it's just under review and you don't think it's working out, you can make your plans now and then, make the break after the Venus retrograde. Today at 12:33, so 233, the sun makes a conjunct with the moon. So this aspect actually indicates the culmination of the new moon, and it's a moment of transition. Before this moment, the moon was waning, and the energy was one of letting go and decrease. After this moment, the moon begins waxing, and the energy becomes one of increase. In this, the moment between the exhale and the inhale, we consider the possibilities for the coming months and years. We set intentions, and out of those intentions come more manageable goals. Sun and moon in Capricorn say a hearty yes to manageable goals, since this is the path to being able to enjoy the feeling of success. A symbolic reading of this aspect is that the outer life and the inner life are in alignment and amplifying our total effectiveness. Capricorn's heavy influence here gives us another celestial green light to get to work on something ambitious that will help us firm up our own supporting structures. So outer, inner, amplified. Highly effective. Try something ambitious. All right. That's for today. Coming up, and I'm going to say that this is out a couple of weeks, but I really just want to give you guys the heads up. Mercury's first of 3 retrogrades this year is coming up. It does begin on January 14th. And generally, this leads to some shifts and shakeups in our plans and communications. Mercury retrograde lasts only 3 weeks and will turn direct again about a week after Venus does. Next week on Wednesday, Venus will make a cooperative aspect with Neptune. And then the next day, on Saturday, Venus reaches its perihelion, or its closest point to the sun, and we'll talk about what that means. And on Sunday, Mercury makes a sextile aspect with Chiron.